everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thank you so much for checking out my latest video. As always, it is much appreciated. You have tuned in today to Rock of Aging episode number 6. I am here with my friend and co-host Erika, and we're here to talk LA Guns. This episode is very special. It's very specific about this one band. Erika and I just saw LA Guns less than 48 hours ago, so it's fresh in our minds. We're going to talk about the new album. We're going to talk about the concert. We're going to talk about the band's history, all sorts of stuff. If you're an LA Guns fan, you have chosen the right video to click on today. So Erika, how's it going?
It's going great. And I'm wearing LA Guns earrings, by the way. I purchased these specifically because I was going to an LA Guns concert in Dallas from a local jewelry designer, and I, wanted to make sure to wear them today. So
new to this episode, we have created the premiere Rock of Aging playlist. Now, this one's heavy on LA Guns because that's the theme of this episode, and that's what our plan is monthly, to do sort of heavy on the artists that we're talking about. But since this is our first one and it's Rock of Aging 6, we decided to include artists from all of our previous episodes. So you're going to have, in addition to LA Guns, you'll have, Guns N' Roses and Trickster and Enough's Enough and Kicks and all that stuff from all the previous ones. I do it in Apple and Spotify, for those of you still using Spotify, and the links are down below in the show notes. So there you go. Check it out, the Rock of Aging playlist for June 2025. Let's start off the show by talking about LA Guns and how we first heard of them, got into them, etc.
You can go first.
Okay, I will start off. I've always loved the debut album from LA Guns because it has this raw feel. Mm-hmm. It was very atypical from most of what was coming out at that time by most of their peers. That's why when people throw LA Guns in as hair metal, I say, I don't know, because they're hair metal adjacent, right? But they're not necessarily, because they always had a harder edge to them, in my opinion. The first album, even though Steve Riley is credited as the drummer on the album, is actually Nicky Alexander, who used to be known as Nicky Beat, and he's a pretty famous LA punk drummer. So that's part of, again, the feel of that first album and why I always thought they were, different than most of the other bands. I first met LA Guns. I got to meet them twice back in the day, and then I met them subsequently just a few years ago. But when I met them in the original times, it was backstage at Def Leppard. They were on tour opening for Def Leppard in 1988 on the Hysteria tour. Most LA Guns fans know that Phil Lewis used to be in a band called Girl in the early 80s. Phil Collen from Def Leppard was the guitar player in that band. So that's how they know each other. They've been friends for decades. So I got to meet the whole band. I got my album signed by all 5 of the original members. But 2 years later, LA Guns was playing at Fat Jack's, a heavy metal bar here in Omaha. It was in Council Bluffs, not in Omaha. And I got to go on the bus. So my good friend Matt, who I've mentioned on the show here a couple of times, is friends with Tracy, and Tracy invited us to hang out, and we got to go up on their tour bus. And this was my first ever experience being in a tour bus of any sort, right? So I was like expecting wildness, mountains of drugs, naked girls running around, just chaos, like you think I was 18 or 19 or something. So this is what I thought backstage was like. And I get on there, and like Tracy's watching these videos that my friend Matt brought, concert videos, like live bootlegs. I think it was Kelly Nichols, and one of the other guys was playing backgammon. Okay. There was no alcohol. There was no drugs. They were drinking coffee and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is not at all what I was expecting. Right now, this was before the show, maybe all the partying's after the show. I don't know, but that was my experience with them. And I did relay that to them 35 years later, that when I went, because I went on their bus again in 2023, and I said, wow, it's just like it was 35 years ago, guys. Like, there's no naked girls, there's no drugs, it's just you guys, and they were like, oh, we just got rid of the girls right before you got here, like they're joking around. So that's my I guess LA Guns origin story there.
Oh wow.
It was a lot. Sorry to bombard you.
No, that's okay, because mine is a lot too. I can tell you that my first interaction with LA Guns, I had just turned 16 about a month before. They came to my hometown in South Sioux City, Nebraska, and they were playing a venue called Mr. Toon's Ballroom, which was a revamped roller skating rink. So this was not necessarily a high traffic venue or like a venue that everyone had to have on their tour route. This was kind of a niche thing. LA Guns was the headliner. They were with the London Choir Boys, and this was in 1990, so it was at the height of their popularity. Cocked and Loaded had come out, but they had only released the 2 albums. I actually met them earlier in the day. I went to an autograph signing at Uncle John's, which was an independent record store in Sioux City, Iowa. And Phil and I made eye contact as I was standing in the line. And by the time I got up there, he had kind of been watching me the whole way. And we had a nice little conversation when he was signing my tape. He was signing my tape, whatever it's called. Like, you pulled
out the full thing. And
yeah. They were signing that. It was the first album that I had them sign, the tape liner. And I talked to all the guys, but Phil and I in particular made quite a direct connection. So later that night, my friend Tina and I, who I do now the podcast with, A92A, went to the show, and Phil again made eye contact with me when I was out in the audience and had somebody come get me after the show to bring me backstage. I, of course, bring Tina along with me, and he gave me article of clothing. It was a vest, black and white polka dot vest. He gave me a necklace that was a super cool, like weird angel wing necklace thing, and a scarf. I believe it was a scarf. So I got 3 pieces of Phil Lewis merchandise that evening.
Exclusive merchandise.
And I ended up on the bus. I'll leave the details of everything that happened for a different podcast episode, but this was literally like my first true interaction with a band. And of course, like, again, these guys were at the height of their popularity, had released Ballad of Jane. And so I was like really, really, really starstruck by all of these guys. They were lovely to us. Similar to you on the bus, there were no wild shenanigans going on, just pretty chill. And it was really such a great first experience with a band. And I think that's why, for me, LA Guns, like if I had a band as a soulmate, like LA Guns would be that band, because our lives have just like intertwined so many times since I was 16 until now when I'm 51, and actually know some of these members of this band. And they're great people. So I love LA Guns. This is like, if I had to pick one band that I'm like, yep, that is my band, it has to be LA Guns. I'm a huge fan of so many of the other bands as well, but there's a weird connection with LA Guns and me. So,
and there's a connection with LA Guns to the Rock of Aging program, because I met you at an LA Guns concert.
True.
That is where we first met. And that is where maybe we could say Rock of Aging sort of in its early incarnation was sort of, working its magic on that day. I mean, we didn't really start talking about it till like a year and a half later, but it germinated, if that's a word, on that particular day.
It did. Good point.
Before we talk about the concert, let's talk about the band's newest album, Leopard Skin, which was released in April of this year. It is, I believe, their 16th studio album. I guess it depends how you count, because I was looking on Discogs trying to figure out exactly how many studio albums they have, and they have so many different records with all the various lineups and stuff. And then sometimes they go back and re-recorded the songs from the early records. They re-recorded the first 2 albums and re-released those. I didn't count those because those were the same album, so 16 is my number, and you can at me if that's wrong. But let's say it's the 16th studio album from LA Guns. It was produced by Tracy Guns, released on Cleopatra Records. My general commentary on on LA Guns right now is that I think because they've had a consistent lineup now for a couple records. So there was a period there in the 2000s where they were constantly shuffling through guys, and it did seem kind of hard to follow. Now they've had the same exact lineup for like 5 years. I think this is maybe the third or fourth record that they've made together. And you notice how much better it is when the band is a band as opposed to Tracy and Phil, and then just three dudes who happen to be in the room. Mm-hmm. And now that he's got like Ace and was it John Martin is the Johnny Martin is the bass player. The drummer's name is Sean. They've got that lineup. They've been together for a couple of years now. They've made records together, and it's noticeable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I know that. So Tina and I interviewed both Tracy and Phil individually on the A92A podcast. And they both talked about the fact that they had kind of gone their separate ways for many, many years, and they were working on other projects, and they were performing LA Guns music, but with different lineups. I think that both of them really finally got it. They're like, if we want to keep doing this LA Guns thing, it has to be the two of us. And once that kind of reunion happened, I think they've been making some really killer music. They've been releasing an album like pretty much once every 2 years. So they started out with like, I think Checkered Past in 2021. They released Black Diamonds in 2023, and now Leopard Skin in 2025. And all three of those albums, and I've said this multiple times, they're such good representations of where the band is now. They sound like LA Guns, as in old school LA Guns, but like they've evolved, like they've matured, like exactly like I want LA Guns to sound in 2025. And I feel that way about all three of those albums that I just mentioned. And I think Leopard Skin is a great representation of where they are now. I feel like, and I don't know if you agree with me, there was like a frivolity to this album, or sort of like a quality of fun and whimsy to this album. And I think it's just representative of where the band is now. I think they're making songs that they feel are fun to perform or are fun to play. And I think that's so true of so many bands when they've been doing this for so long. They stop worrying so much about creating music that will, rocket up the charts, and they care more about creating music that resonates with them or where they're at in their own personal lives. And I think this just feels like a good album that's representative of just the positive vibes that they seem to all have going on in their individual lives right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're not trying to recreate their heyday. They're not trying to sound like Cocked and Loaded or anything like that. Tonally, it's different. Lyrically, it's different. Everything about it is different. That was 35 years ago. So of course they're going to be different people. I like the fact, like you said, that they do sound like this is just them now. It's not them trying to be something else. And I do think the fact that they've had this consistency of 3 good albums in a row, at least, it does go back to what I said about having the consistent lineup. And from a fan perspective, it's nice to know who the guys are in the band.
Yeah.
Like when you show up at the show, to be like, who are those dudes, and have no idea who they are. And maybe they get an introduction at the end of the show, but basically you're like, okay, I guess I'm here to see the guy that I know from 30 years ago. And then these young guys, and you don't connect as strongly, in my opinion, to the band that way, because people latch on to what they latch on to, right? They like, oh, I really love that bass player. Like, that's my favorite guy. He's so cool. I want to watch him. And if it's a different bass player every time, then you can never really lock into the fan thing of like, this is what I like about this particular band. And
when you look at like the shows that we've seen recently, we've had that same conversation, whether it's Morant or the Bullet Boys or Trickster or Enough's Enough or Pretty Boy Floyd. It's like, we don't know who these people are. Right. Like, they're just on the stage with like maybe like the one person we remember, or the one, main character, so to speak, from the band that's still out there grinding it out. But there is no connection. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the live show, I think. But I feel like this reincarnation of LA Guns is the best reincarnation of any band ever, because I love all of these guys. They gel so magnificently together on stage. I think they write really well together. I think they perform and travel and tour really well together. I love these guys. I think
they don't feel like
for a
they don't
long
feel
time.
like backup guys, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay, it's the Tracy and Phil show and then 3 backups. Like,
Right.
they're very much a part of the band now. They're in all the photographs, and I
Yep.
remember Phil saying something from the stage about, "Oh, this is a song that Ace wrote," or whatever.
Exactly.
So it's like they're all incorporating it. It's not
Mhm.
just these are just guys filling in, and you don't even have to know them. Don't worry about it. It's not important. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they make them a part of the band, and I think now long-term fans are starting to like latch on to these guys, and it's like
Mhm.
they're not just, nobody's yelling out, "Where's Kelly Nichols?" or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, um, it just doesn't happen. But I would like to take this 1 second, just because I said Kelly Nichols, to say that
Mhm.
I want to give a shout out to my late friend Megan, who passed away a couple months ago.
Oh.
She was a huge LA Guns fan, and her favorite was Kelly Nichols. And the last communication that I heard from her was she made a joke about Kelly Nichols because she thought he was in a photo that I took. It wasn't him, but it was somebody else. But I just thought that was nice, and I haven't really publicly addressed that. But that's from my friend Megan, who is a huge LA Guns fan. So
Well, I'm with Megan because back in the day, Kelly Nichols was also my favorite band member. Like, I loved Kelly Nichols,
yeah,
and,
I think a lot of ladies love Kelly Nichols.
yeah, he was hot.
Like I said, it was produced by Tracy. I think the album, it's not like it doesn't have a real heavy sound in the
Mm.
guitars. The guitars are very like layered, and it's almost like it's hard rock, not metal for sure. Um, the first singles, of course, were Taste It and Lucky Motherfucker, and those were both made into videos.
Mhm.
I'm not crazy about the videos, but like, they are what they are. Videos serve a different purpose in 2025 than they did in, say, 1989, when videos were everything. And if you didn't get your video on MTV, your record was dead. So
Mhm.
now it's just like a nice additive to people to give them a taste of the new record. So those were the 2 singles. Although I'll be totally candid, those weren't my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, I
You
would
know?
agree, and I think the videos, again, were kind of reflective of the quality of just, like, these guys were just having a good time. Like, you kinda get that vibe from the
Yeah,
videos
they weren't
themselves,
taking it
like,
too seriously.
yeah, exactly, which is kind of how I feel about the album. It's just fun. It's just
Yeah.
them doing what they want to do. But no, those are not necessarily my favorite songs on the album either. I would agree with you. I mean, I really did like Hit and Run. I think that is
Yeah.
one of my favorite tracks. I heard it actually for the first time when they performed it live the other night. And then I've been listening to the album since then, and it's got one of those just qualities to it that once you hear it once or twice, you want to hear it again, you want to hear it again, you want to hear it again. And for me, like, that's always the mark of a great song, is when you just want to keep listening to that one song over and over.
Yeah, Hit and Run and The Masquerade were my 2
Mhm.
favorites on the album, and they're both
Yeah.
not the more rocking tunes. I mean, The Masquerade is, I guess, technically the ballad, although it's not a ballad in the '80s sense, but it is a little bit more of a mellower track.
Yep.
And Hit and Run is also a mid-tempo track, not a ballad, but just like a mid-tempo rocker. Like, you could almost see like a band like Soul Asylum or something doing that song, like it was
Mhm.
very just middle of the road rock. And I don't mean middle of the road as a negative. I just mean mid tempo, whatever.
Yeah.
But I did like that song. And when they pulled it out live, I was very surprised because I thought that would be a B-side, that they would focus more on Lucky Motherfucker and Taste It, I'm Your Candy Man, or whatever, the songs that sound more like the classic LA Guns. But they didn't. They did play Hit and Run, and it was really, really good live. It
Mhm.
was very, very
I
solid.
was, talking about their albums. They had an album a couple years ago, Black Diamonds, and they had a song called Diamonds on that album. And it's a great, great, great song. And I remember talking to Phil about that song in particular when we interviewed him on A92A. And he seemed so proud of that song. And when I saw them perform that song a few times during the course of that tour cycle, the audience was really, really into Diamonds. And so I was really surprised that they didn't perform it at the show the other day, because they've kind of, I guess, kind of let that one go. But I did love, like you said, Masquerade. That's another one that kind of feels like an old school sort of power ballad, kind of, like when I was I was 16 years old and listening to these cassette tapes, like I would always look for the slow song. Like that
Right.
was like my thing, like a lot of 16-year-old girls. But I did love the Masquerade because it sounded like that to me. I was just sad that Diamonds didn't make the cut on this last live performance, but Great song.
Yeah. So bottom line is I think we'll both bottom line it. We like the record. We think it's really good. It's age appropriate. It's not a band of guys in their 50s, 60s, trying to sound like they were in their 20s.
Yeah, I would
Because
agree.
it's just foolish to try and do that. You don't sound like you did back then. And you if you want to be a new band, a current band, like I'm all for old classic bands reuniting, but I think LA Guns is doing it the right way because they're not just like, we're going to go out and play you the same 15 songs that we've been playing for you for the past 35, 40 years or whatever. We're going to introduce good new stuff. Like
well, that's the key. Good new stuff.
Right.
Because I'm hearing a lot of these bands that have been out for 35 years that are introducing new stuff, and it's like that's not stuff I want to hear. But like with LA Guns, they've got some really good content that they're introducing as they
and they're not afraid to play it in concert, because I think they played like at least 4 songs off the new record. At least if you're proud of your new record, don't just play one song. I mean, you're going to introduce it to your audience, and the audience seemed receptive. I mean, I guess now would be the appropriate time to move into the concert discussion part of the video. Them at Barnato. It is a Bentley dealership by day and rock and roll club by night. Opening the show was a band from Lincoln, Nebraska called Paisty Jenny. Now, Paisty Jenny, I had not heard of them. I didn't know much about them. They apparently have a couple of albums out, and they have an audience. I mean, I don't know a lot about them. We did watch their entire show. I did think the bass player was a spitting image of some guy in the band Lit. Like he looked like he should be in Lit, you know.
I agree.
And the singer, when he came out, at first I thought his voice sounded kind of like Sebastian Bach, but then it sort of changed and he was singing like some different singers and stuff. So I guess it was just a mishmash of various sort of hard rock bands, but I couldn't really pinpoint exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this kind of music or it's just not my thing, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That's one person's opinion. I will say that like none of these guys look like they were in their 20s, so I have a lot of respect for the fact that these guys, they probably all have day jobs doing something else, but they're still like grinding it out and touring and probably going to play gigs like this for not a whole lot of money, but they're still doing it because they're passionate about what they do and performing live. And so I have a lot of respect for that for every band, you know, that's still out there doing that sort of thing. You know, I thought, you know, their music was fine. I know that the local TV outlet in Lincoln recently did a little clip about their song "Tell It Like It Is," which I think is about healing. And so they were trying to kind of
like reference that during the show. Yeah,
I appreciated the fact that they were out there, you know, doing the work and grinding it out.
For you, baby boys, bring it down.
So let's move on. So about 20-minute teardown or so, and then LA Guns came on. I thought they were really good. I mean, it was a solid set. It was you know, Barnato is a smaller club, but that's better because you can get right up close. I mean, that's the thing. We were like right, you know, we could reach out and practically touch the band at this point because we were so close. It was, I don't know. I thought it was a good song selection. They played, like I said, a couple of cuts from the new record, and then they interspersed it with all the classics that you would want to hear.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the lineup in terms of set list. I do wish they would have played Diamonds, because I think that's a track that has some legs to it that they could keep touring with. But like you said, they played all of the hits that you would know: Rip and Tear, Never Enough, Electric Gypsy, Sex Action, of course, Ballad of Jane.
I love you. Hey! You sound great. Thank you.
And you know, the thing about LA Guns is they're sort of like that sleaze rock format, but they have a big catalog of hits. It's sort of like what we were talking about when we were reviewing Warrant, where it's like you're not just waiting for like the 1 or 2 songs that you remember. They had like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 songs that, like, you know. And so I think that really helps with engagement with the audience, because you can kind of intersperse those that everybody knows and remembers with the ones that are newer and that maybe people haven't heard yet. But I think that's what makes the set engaging. I've never seen an LA Guns show that wasn't where the people in the audience weren't really fired up. And this was no exception. The place was packed. Yeah. We should note that as well. It was completely full, and the crowd was into it. I mean, they were definitely
into it. There were people who were there 2 years ago. They were there 35 years ago. They've been following these guys. As long as you're talking about the older songs, this album is practically a greatest hits to me. I mean,
oh yeah,
No Mercy, Sex Action, One More Reason, Electric Gypsy, Nothing to Lose. That's just side 1. Right?
I know, crazy.
Like, it's great. Every song on there is great. They could have played that album start to finish. I would have been cool with that too. But I'm glad they didn't.
That's such a great idea, actually, for an upcoming tour. Is they should play that album start to finish. You know,
that
like,
would
it's
be
been
cool.
I one of my all-time favorite LA Guns songs is One Way Ticket. And they never play that song. And so I would love to like hear them play that song for like the first time, maybe ever. I don't even know if they played that song actually back in the day. Like, that's just not one that they bring out live. So that's a great idea for a future tour.
I would like to see that too. Yeah. I don't
know. My favorite LA Guns song of all time is Electric Gypsy. Like, I just love that song.
That's a great one. And they did in fact play that one.
They did.
That is absolutely one of their best songs, no question. Yeah. We were right on the side of the stage. I mean, it's our right, so that's stage left. And we were over there kind of where Phil was. And we did notice that Phil, in between songs, would kind of come off stage and spray his throat a little bit and drink a little bit of this drink. And we kind of wondered, does that mean he might have a sore throat, or he wasn't feeling great, or whatever? But honestly, if we hadn't seen them doing that, we would have had no idea, because his voice sounded awesome during the show. So whatever it was he was spraying, it did the trick. I mean, if he wasn't 100%, he wasn't feeling great, you definitely could not tell.
You definitely would never know. And I said that to you as we were leaving the show. It's like, I couldn't tell if he actually had a sore throat, or did he just come up with this magic formula to make his voice sound like it did in 1989, because he kept spraying his throat, and then he would drink this orange drink, and then he would come back on stage and just pound out the vocals. And I mean, he was hitting some high notes. He hits high notes in a way that I don't think most guys that are lead singers now from bands from 35 years ago, most people can't still hit those high notes. He still can. And his vocals are so pristine. They're so lit. I mean, every time I see him, I'm just amazed. It's almost kind of like this creepy thing that, like, he keeps sounding better and better and better with age. And it's so rare for vocals.
Yeah. And you know, we looked this up. I don't think this is a secret. He's 67 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he sounded great. I mean, yeah, most of the guys his age, if they're still out there singing and they are actually singing live, and Phil was for sure, they don't sound as good as he did. He sounds great. And maybe that's a new regimen of taking care of himself, you know, do whatever. I who knows? I think he's been doing it for a while now, because I think all of these guys' major partying days are probably long behind them. So they're doing the thing of like, they probably rest after the show. I got to get my 8 hours of sleep in. We got another gig tomorrow, that whole thing. And that's fine. Like I said, age appropriate. It's rock, or this show is called Rock of Aging. We're all getting older. They also played a lot of other classics. Of course, they played One More Reason, I Want to Be Your Man, Rip and Tear, like you said. Now, when they started playing I Want to Be Your Man, which they play all the time, I thought it was Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC, and I got excited, and I was like, oh, they're covering AC/DC. Because in between songs, Tracy was like noodling a lot, and he would just play the guitar, play quieter stuff, play a rock track, play whatever. He goofs around. They did Hell's Bells a little bit by AC/DC. So I Want to Be Your Man, the beginning riff does sort of sound like Dirty Deeds, and I immediately was like, oh shit, like this is going to be cool. It wasn't. They played I Want to Be Your Man, which is their track, but great one that they pretty much always play. I mean, every time I've seen them, I think they played it.
Yeah, that's a great song. They did play Over the Edge as well, which is one of my all-time favorite LA Guns songs. They pulled out a lot of classics, and like I said, they have just such a big catalog. And you and I, like you mentioned, were on the side of the stage that was really focused on Phil and Tracy, which was great. Now the Ace and Johnny show was at the other end of the stage because those two have their own dynamic, especially during live performances. I love watching those guys. Ace is just so cool. And then Johnny.
The Ace Gun show. Holy smokes, that guy's been lifting weights.
Yeah.
Like his arms are gigantic.
He's so great. And then Johnny is always like, he's so tight with his wardrobe. Like, I just love to see that guy perform because he's always like, so put together and looks so cool. And so Johnny Martin is just one of my all-time favorite guys to see live. But Phil, by the way, I noticed this for the first time, has a surprisingly low number of tattoos. I mean, a lot of these guys are all tatted up. Phil, I think, has something going on like down here, but like nothing up here. And I just for the first time noticed that.
Maybe that's the British thing. Maybe because in Britain,
do tattoos in the UK.
They don't do as many tattoos there. They don't get as tatted up. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I will say that, like, as much as I sometimes in my head despise GA shows and standing for like an entire set, it's so funny because when I get to that environment, it's like my natural habitat. It's like I remember exactly how to like maneuver your way closer to the stage and how to like maximize your floor space and making friends with people around you so there's no drama. It's just like such a different environment, but I'm not usually in that environment anymore just based on what I do. I'm usually working shows or I have seats somewhere or something, but it is like part of my DNA. I think like that GA kind of show.
I love it. I mean, reserve seat shows are great for certain type of artists, but for me, I do typically like the GA vibe.
Yeah.
But because at least it gives you the opportunity that you can get to the front if you want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to say that all arena shows back in the 80s when we were coming up were all GA. And I felt like it was very egalitarian in a certain way because all the tickets were the same price.
Yeah.
And the closer you get to the front is just how fast you are. And your ability to withstand standing there for like 4 or 5 hours till the show starts. Because
I mean, I remember, because we would get there early. In one case, Tina and I actually left school at noon in the 9th grade so that we could go stand in line and we could be right up front for Poison at the Sioux City Auditorium back in the day. But yes, I would agree. And I remember thinking, like, when I would go to those arena shows and be on the GA floor, which I always was, I remember looking at like the random people like up in the seats and thinking like, wow, that's so lame. Like, who would want to be in the seats? And of course now at 51, I'm like, give me a seat, please. But and I will say too, based on the side of the stage that we were on, I had like a really good view of Sean Duncan. And I don't normally like have that type of sight line to Sean Duncan at LA Gun shows. That guy is a beast. Like, he is an intense drummer. I took some footage just of him.
along.
Yeah.
He's not mic'd. He's just doing that. It's not like, I love that because that shows the drummer's just not focusing on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like he's actually enjoying the song because he's singing the lyrics along with them. And there's no reason for him to sing because he doesn't have a microphone. So he's just doing it because he wants to. I thought
he's just into
cool.
the music, but I thought he was insanely talented. I mean, you can tell from just the recordings that he's a talented drummer, but like when you watch him, like that energy he was just now putting into that clip, like he was doing that the whole way through. Like he was intense. And I had not noticed him in previous like shows that I've seen recently, just because I haven't had that kind of like direct view to what he's doing back there. But like he's an insane drummer. He really
I also think he's got that vibe of like, he is a cross between maybe that Nicky Alexander, who was the ghost drummer on the first record, and Steve Riley, he's more of a metal drummer, and then Nicky Beat was more of a punk drummer. And I think he blends those two well, so he can effortlessly move from the first album to a cut off the new record to a cut from Black Diamonds to something off Hollywood Vampires or whatever. He was able to seamlessly move, and it always felt appropriate, and it never felt like overdone. Like some metal drummers just kind of overdo it. They want to have 4 bass drums and, you know, all that crazy fills and everything. And he didn't really bother with that. Like I appreciated that because I thought like that meant like, he was vibing, you know, it was a cool sort of circumstance. So I like him as the drummer of the band. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And I follow all of these guys on social media. They each have their own kind of like their deal, you know, like Ace is like a huge animal rights guy. He's constantly putting together fundraisers and raising money for animal rights and dogs in particular. Johnny is just like I said, like so cool. He's just so cool. And Sean is like really positive, like really upbeat, like posting like positive kind of inspirational messages. And then Tracy and Phil are just Tracy and Phil. I mean, they're awesome. But I just really like adore all 5 of these band members. And I think when they come together, it's magical. I hope they stay together forever and ever and ever. I think they're so great. By the time this episode airs, we will have announced this. LA Guns is coming back to Omaha in September. They're performing at Steelhouse with Tom Kiefer. So I'm super excited about that. It's Friday, September 26th. So if you did not see LA Guns at Barnato, definitely go to see LA Guns the next time they're in town because they.
Yeah, that was a hard secret to keep that night.
I know. I was like, oh, I hope I see them again soon. And actually, I talked to Ace before the show, and you know, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't spend more time talking or something. I'm like, oh, I'll see you in a few months.
Good news for LA Guns fans. We just have that exclusive announcement. Well, it's exclusive now, but it'll be out there in public by the time this airs. But regardless, you heard it here first, probably. With Tom Kiefer Band and LA Guns returning to Omaha. So that will be great. I look forward to that and to see the differences between the sets. Because like I said, 2 years ago, they played Steelhouse, or in 2023. That was when I first met you. And they were great that night. But that was also, I was marveling at the fact that that was the first time I'd seen them since 1990. Right. So that was a long time it had gone. Now it's just 2 years since I saw them. And now it'll be just a couple months again. So now I can hyper focus on, you know, the differences between the performances and what songs they played this time versus that time. And I think for me, when there was that period in say 2005 to 15 or whatever, where they were cycling through members and sometimes Tracy wasn't there. Sometimes Phil wasn't there. Sometimes and you just didn't know what an LA Guns record or show might be. Now that is no longer a mystery. It's these same 5 guys. That's who you're going to see every time. They're a tight unit. They play new stuff. They play classic stuff. They don't play any of that middle period, which you don't know anyways, and you wouldn't recognize. You know what I mean?
And to your point, I mean, you do know what you're getting. And if you haven't seen LA Guns in a while, I would encourage you to go see them out on tour because you will not be disappointed. I've never been disappointed at an LA Guns show going all the way back to 1990 when I first saw them in South Sioux City. They just always bring it. And there's always enthusiasm and electricity. And the audience is always very enthusiastic. So it's always a good time. It's always a fun show.
Yeah, met a lot of cool people in the crowd. Talked to a couple people who had been to Fat Jack's, the infamous heavy metal club that I talk about all the time on the show. They used to go to Fat Jack's. Nice when you can see them and literally they're like touching distance.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, wow, you know, because you never could have seen that in 1990 or whatever. But yeah, they are kind of the best of both worlds at this point. Like they do make good new music and they still have high energy concerts. They have a lineup that a fan can connect to. It's not Tracy and Phil and three anonymous dudes. These guys are the band now. So, okay, I think we can kind of wrap it up here a little bit. This was our dominant LA Guns show. So now you know our feelings on LA Guns. The new album, Leopard Skin, is out now. It's on CD, it's on vinyl, it's streaming if that's your bag. It is a good record. We talked about our favorite cuts on the album. It basically hit and run, I think we both agree, is the key on this record. It's the best one, and I'm glad that they're playing it.
I think Phil mentioned though too that like that track had been getting a lot of attention, like a lot of downloads, a lot of positive feedback. And so I think it's so interesting too that they're so connected with what their fans are into and what their fans are resonating with, that they're putting that into the set list. So again, that's just such a cool thing about LA Guns, is that they're so connected to their fan base in that way.
All around great time had by all. So we also just gave you the announcement of a future LA Guns show coming up in September here in Omaha. And if you feel like road tripping in, I mean, you know, I'm not going to object.
Me either.
If you see me running around in the crowd, you know, you could just say, hey, you know, anyways, well, no, don't do anything weird. Just a nice hello. That's always a positive. I'm up for that. Again, please check out the playlist below. It's about 2 hours of music. And again, it's got all the bands that we've been talking about going back to our second episode. Of course, like this video, subscribe to the Dark Stuff channel, hit the notifications bell so you get notified when we put out new videos, and comment about your favorite, maybe your favorite LA Guns songs, an LA Guns anecdote, or anything that you have connected to these guys, or you've seen them, or whatever your favorite songs. We would love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
favorite memories are always good.
Favorite memories are great. Anyways, that is going to wrap it up for ROA 6, Rock of Aging 6. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next month. Adios.
Bye.